All righty. How y'all doing? How's everybody doing? Hey, Lucas, how you doing, buddy? Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Hey, Red Cosmonaut, how you doing? Yeah. Oh, this Cosmo Zombie. Hey, Cosmo, how you doing? Everything is total shit. I'm sorry, Jason. What's happening today, buddy? Let's talk it out. Let's talk it out. I personally, I'm doing all right today. I feel better than I have in a long time. So yeah, what's going on with you? We're here for you, bud. Um. Yeah. Today we're going to be talking about black shirts and reds. Finishing it up. So hopefully the stuff that we're going to talk about is a little bit better. Um. Uh oh. Elisa's Nightbot. Nightbot didn't let you spam emotes. Oh no. I gotta go in and make sure that it'll let you spam emotes because I think spam emotes is funny. Hey Kenny Powers, welcome. I'm glad you're here tonight. Hey Tempest. Elisa, feel free to do emotes, but I guess it limits how many you can do. I finally got Nightbot working, y'all. I joined the 21st century. Y'all let me know if anything causes chat to slow down or if if anything if anything happens. I'm still figuring this shit out. I bet it was Lucas. I love the left flank vet streams. I especially like when I like the ones where it's just like Marcus bullshitting by himself. I really do like those. I'll tune in my work day and like try to find some bullshit work to do so that I can just listen. So I can just sit back and listen to Marcus talk. It's kind of fun. Hey Lucy, welcome. I hope you're feeling better. I'm sorry that thing knocked you on your ass. Um, I don't know. I've heard people been telling me that it might knock me on my ass too. So we'll see. Um, what happened to my hat? My hat seems like it's kind of like wonkified. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, nope, still wonky. Maybe my head just got wonkier. I don't know. Stepping up in the Twitch world. How's that, TMKF? Hey, Darth Aztec. Um, how am I stepping up in the Twitch world? I guess I'm close to 1,000 followers, which is nice. I mean, most of the other people I know who are disciplined communist streamers have already hit 1,000 followers. So I feel good about what I got, but I don't know if I'm stepping up. At least I'm feeling well. Just my friend Lucy in the chat was not feeling too well earlier. Um, so yeah, that's all. But yeah, today we're going to be going over the second part of Black Shirts and Reds. We're gonna go over a few things. This it's funny. These two streams last Friday and this Friday are probably going to be the most I ever talk about the USSR. So apologize in advance for y'all who don't want to hear about the USSR. And you know, it is what it is. You got to listen to me. Oh, the new Nightbot thing. Yeah, TMK, if you haven't seen the layout before, yeah, I got this new layout going. I don't know, I might keep it, I might switch it up. I haven't decided yet. Um, but yeah, I got Nightbot working like on Tuesday night when I was like, I promise I'm gonna get Nightbot working. I sat down, I was like, God damn it, I'm gonna get Nightbot working. So I figured it out. Thanks, Darth Aztec. Yeah, 1,000 followers. I've only been streaming for a few months, so I think that's pretty good. Personally, I feel really happy with the people who come regularly, with y'all who have become my friends. Some of y'all who were already my friends from my Twitter days, which are now behind me, and y'all who've become my friends through Twitch. I mean, honestly, I feel happier, teaching in this way than I have in a long time. It makes me remember um, back when I was teaching, and different teaching jobs are different. Um, and I've had jobs where I felt very distant from my students, but I've had jobs where I felt like we were just more like friends, and there was a lot of goofing off, but they really came in and they tried to learn, and so it was like more goofing, but also somehow more teaching. you know um so yeah, this kind of reminds me of that. And I tell you, my job now, I miss that. I miss that feeling of having that connection with people, with actually feeling like I'm doing something for other people on a day-to-day basis. um Indeed, RIP Gomer's Twitter. Hey Jamie, welcome, I'm glad you're here. Tierno, please do not mention Arby's on this chat. This is an Arby's free chat. I don't want to ban you. I don't want to ban you. Hey, Anarcho Druism, welcome. Jason Voorhees, I understand not feeling Twitter anymore. I do understand that. The meats at Arby's, I don't know. Maybe it's because I've been vegan for a while, but the longer I stay vegan, the more, like, there's an Arby's kind of by my house, and hey, oh no, oh no. Nightbot went after Tyranno. Oh shit! I gotta turn down. Like, Nightbot is super aggro right now. Oh no, Tyranno, you're gonna have to say that in not all caps, I guess, till I get Nightbot to turn its shit down and not be so angry. Oh my God, Nightbot coming after Elisa and Tyranno today already. Um, hey Lanny, welcome. Tyranno, it deleted your messages. The caps that you had put in the messages, it deleted. Full on aggro bot. It is on one, Lucas. Ah, shit. Nothing happened at Arby's, Jay. Nightbot is the fun police, apparently. Well, it's okay, because Nightbot can't stop me from having fun with my guns. Nightbot can stop you, but it can't stop me. Nightbot works for this guy right here. I'm gonna be as bad as I want to be. Yes, Nightbot is indeed trigger happy today. Nightbot says, "Reach for the stars. Stop spamming caps." Oh shit! Oh no! Oh no, Nightbot, don't do that! Oh shit! Fuck. Oh no, Nightbot has timed out my friend Tyranno. Um, um, Nightbot is stopping Red Cosmonaut. I gotta figure out how to stop this, y'all. This is fucked up. Hold on. I think I can fix it right on the fly. I think I can fix it. God damn it! I was so proud to have Nightbot doing good, and then here it is being an asshole. Um, you know. Okay, I'm gonna disable excess caps, disable excess emotes, um, enable links, and disable excess symbols. Uh, that's all right. Yeah, they can handle that. Okay, let me see if that fixes it, y'all. Um, y'all tell me if it's fixed. Oh shit. Okay. ACAB absolutely includes Nightbot. This is a dictatorship of the proletariat. Yes. Oh my god. Yeah, Lucy. Nightbot is a straight up narc, dude. Um, okay. So, Tyranno, please, I'm sorry that you are timed out. I tried to go fix it to make you not timed out, but it wouldn't let me. So please don't leave. Please enjoy watching me talk for a little bit, and then um, and then you can come back and spam as much as you want. Oh, okay. So, hey, somebody take the hit and try to put a bunch of emoticons in the chat. Somebody spam emoticons real quick. Spam emotes. I want to see if I fixed it. Glad you hopped out of Sketty's stream for this. Oh no. I'm sorry, Exquisitor Vorbis. Oh shit. Okay, we're back. Hey Elijah, welcome. We're back. We can spam emotes now. Thank goodness. Thank the good Lord. Um Yeah, fuck you, Nightbot. You can't hold us down. You can't hold people down. Okay, now somebody see if you can use Nightbot for good shit. Like try to do a shout out to somebody. Do a shout out for Comrade Kenny or somebody. Yellow Parenti, yes. Oh shit. You might have to do like shout out the Comic Con. Let's see. At the Comic Con. Let's see. Did that work? Oh, his channel is Comic Con. Did that work? Nope. Damn it, Nightbot. You suck ass. All you do is make problems and you don't do anything good. You're fired forever. Oh yeah, Elijah. Yeah, it does line up with the book study. See, look, it can't even help Black Knight. Look at that. Nightbot sucks, just like a cop. He doesn't do anything good, only does bad shit. Takes my friends to timeout when I want to hang out with them. Okay. Ross Perot or Clarence Thomas? I have no idea what that means, Sean Solomon Wheat. That is a very strange question. That's true, Exquisitor Vorvis. All right, let's get it started in here. Black Shirts and Reds Part 2. Let's go. Okay, so I decided I'm not going to do a recap. I'm going to just do it. I'm just going to do it. So, all right, who really is propagandized? Us or the former Soviet Union, right? It's very interesting. Russian citizens were not propagandized robots. And real quick, I just want to say the style has not changed from last time. Parenti jumps all over the place. He's like, all right, we're talking about this. All right, we're done with that. We're talking about something else. So that's exactly how this stream is going to be. So that's why I'm just jumping right the fuck into it. All right. Russian people got a lot of like boring shit in their news, like state visits. And, they definitely got a bunch of lies about like, everything is great, production is up, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, that was all very transparent, right? You gotta understand that like they were just not good at the kind of population control propaganda that the United States does, right? We are legitimately taught, we are legitimately programmed to think that everything is fine and that there aren't people who are colonized within our country, that we're all one big happy melting pot, you know what I mean? And then some people suffer more, but maybe it's a little bit their fault. Like there are a lot of things that are taught to us that we legitimately accept, that we don't question, that it takes time to deprogram from, you know what I mean? Like especially us white people, we like our deprogramming is just it can take years, literally, even to scratch the surface on some of it, right? Which is sad. So when you think about Russians, a lot of times all of us have this image of like people, like communists, either being like, secretly wanting to get out to the West and like putting on blue jeans in their wardrobe at night and being worried that their cameras looking into their house, or you think of them as like, Boris and Natasha kind of types from Rocky and Bullwinkle, like just these wild, obsessive, totally obsessive types, right? And like it just wasn't like that. Everybody knew that the news was kind of bullshit, so everybody had kind of like a bit of a distance from the news. You know what I mean? Yeah, Elijah, they did have jeans. He absolutely did. They didn't need to put them on in secret in their closets. Drat musan squirrel. Oh boy. Hey, Exquisite Vorbis, remind me, I got a story I want to tell you one on one about Bullwinkle, Rocky and Bullwinkle later, but it'll dox me if I tell it on here, so I can't tell it on here. Um, so Disco Rat, I don't know what she's talking about, but I did like you on Twitter, I think, so I'll let that kind of shit slide. Um, Oh yeah, absolutely. A ton of the imagery of communists being brainwashed as super racist. Totally agree, Jamie. Totally agree. Um, oh yeah, okay, gotcha, Disco. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, ain't you in T and Spittin's ain't you in T and Spittin's Discord? I forget. So anyway, uh, so why are we so propagandized when they really were not, right? Their academics were vocally anti-communist. Their government even started, like their government lost its fundamental Marxist education, right? Now, some people would make that argument today that there are many people in current governments that don't have a very strong Marxist education. I've heard that criticism, but you can legitimately say that about the USSR. Like that's an iffy criticism about places like China. That's a real criticism about the USSR. Like one of the, like Yeltsin, I think it was, fundamentally made a mistake between talking about capitalism and capital, right? Now, for you or I to mistake capitalism and capital is really not that big of a deal, right? As in, like, we're learning communists. But for the head of a damn nation to make a mistake like that, you know what I mean? Like for the number one guy who really should know about fucking communism to make that kind of mistake is very telling, right? They in the end they were just opportunists. They had climbed their way through the ranks and they didn't give a shit about Marxism, right? So um, in addition to that, there were tons of U.S. sponsored anti-communist media in the USSR. I know this probably surprises you, but in the late '80s or early '90s, there were literally like the Moscow News or something like that. Like they had actual anti-communist newspapers in the USSR because they were trying this whole like, let's open up, let's allow more free thought. And it's really funny that as soon as they started trying to allow more criticism of the USSR, allow more open free thought, which didn't mean individuals. Individuals could always say wild shit, right? The academics had been saying wild shit since the 50s, but actually having like institutional criticism of communism in general, which I think is a stupid idea, but allowing it to be institutionalized, of course, immediately undermined the government, right? So Glasnost and Perestroika immediately undermined the USSR. Oh yeah. Oh, Jason, don't wait. Wait a minute. We're going to get to that. That so many of the people were actually Nazis who or far right fascists and such who were part of this anti-communist push. So it's it's really funny when they talk, like Parenti talks about the academics of the time and how they literally like reveled in anti-communism, right? Like it was seen as like a cool guy thing to do for academics to be like, communism, this sucks, and we need the liberal democracy of the West. Hey, Toaster, welcome. And what he talks about is how, yeah, edgy academics, they're always like that, right? Contrarians. So what Parenti talks about is how people literally just took for granted the social benefits that they had, right? Like what they were interviewed when they were like when people were talking on the street when they were interviewed about the changes during the time of the like Glasnost, the and Perestroika, a lot of the integration of capitalist reforms in the government and integration of institutional criticism of communism. When they were interviewing regular people, they were like, okay, so do you know that in Western countries, they don't have things like universal medicine? They don't have things like universal education and housing. And they were like, don't worry about that. We will keep that, right? They literally thought that they could keep socialism and integrate capitalism. But you can't have that. You can't have both everybody owning the means of production and only a few people owning the means of production and have it be a functional long-term system, right? It doesn't even work in the short term, to be honest. You have to be actively fighting back against the capital, because when you stop fighting the capital takes over. Why? Because the capital propaganda machine and the capital war machine does not give a fuck about you. It is pointed at undermining socialism 100% all the time, right? It's never going to exist peacefully. So yeah, exactly, socialists, exactly, Laney. Did not work. So, so yeah, I mean that's the long and the short of it, right? They literally just like they lost the quality of Marxist education in the country and all the way up through the leadership. So we can't say that they were heavily propagandized in school and shit, because even the leaders in the end were just kind of like very blasé and had a Western propagandized outlook, right? They literally had been thoroughly propagandized by the West, so much so that they allowed companies to come in and control the government and eventually lead to a bloodless coup. All right. Now that may sound like revisionist history to you. That may sound like, oh, old Gomer's just a commie and he just loves the Soviet Union so much, and so he's making a bunch of excuses for it and shit. But I'll tell you what, let's keep going, because really, there are reasons why what I'm saying is correct, right? I'm not just saying this shit from the hip. I'm not saying this shit from the hip, and I'm going to give you reasons why it's true, all right? Lanny, the fall of the USSR was sort of a counter-revolution, absolutely. And we're going to talk about how it was a bloodless counter-revolution in many, many places, right? Where the counter-revolution had started before the revolution happened very often, right? With the influx of capital and propaganda. So, socialist states, in the very beginning, bloodless for whom is a very good point, Elijah, because oftentimes the communists, even people who were vaguely related to labor, were absolutely attacked. But there was no civil war, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. The socialists didn't fight back. They simply allowed it to happen. So, and I mean, part of the reason that happens is because of propaganda, right? Because they've already been propagandized at that point. And the laziness and ennui and depression that a lot of us face right now is in part due to our capitalist propagandizing here in this country, right? So in the beginning, they did a very good job of keeping out that capitalist propaganda, because capitalist propaganda is not just alternative ideas, right? And that's a very important thing to note, right? People sometimes think about this like they just said, oh, look, here's an alternative model. Here's what we get. Here's what y'all get. You make the decision which one you like, right? That's not how shit goes. Capitalism says, look at all the things we have. It doesn't actually have them things, right? It's just saying, look at all these things we have. You could have this too. You could keep all the things you have currently, and you can have this. You just got to let in a little bit of capital, right? The smooth lies of capitalism are ever present. They were present in the 90s, they were present 100 years ago, right? So you have to understand that they were flooded with these lies, and the more the lies took hold in the government, the more the government opened up to accepting more of this external propaganda until eventually it just took over, right? So we have to think about this as a war of ideas, a war of propaganda, but it's not a war of ideas in the sense of just people accepting each other's ideas or one idea winning out over the other. No, it's a war literally of very pretty lies versus truth, all right? So, I kind of went over a lot of this, but capitalism, you have to think about it like this, right? When y'all think about capitalism in this country, you know that America, since we were born, we've been told again and again, like it's the land of the free, land of opportunity, that if you work hard, you'll be able to own your own home, that people can start businesses and fight back against big business, and the small guy can actually win in America, right? We've been told these messages again and again, ever since we were born, right? That we are all born equal, that we have equality under the law, that people fundamentally get the same chances, and if they don't get exactly the same chances, they get close, and if anybody just works hard enough, even if they were disadvantaged, they'll get it eventually, right? We're all taught this shit from very young, and most of us have figured out that it's total bullshit, right? Most of us have figured out that no, some people in this country, especially the non-white, non-male people, are going to have a much harder time than the white folks. And when we say much harder, we mean like some of them are going to get no chance ever, right? They will literally be born, live, and die with no chance to progress, right? Some of them are going to get a chance, and then they're going to have that shit taken away, right? We can look at the 2010, we should call it a land grab. We should honestly call it a land grab, right? The land grab of the banks taking black folks' homes away from them because they had given predatory loans to the black folks and the government just let it happen, right? That was a land grab. So let's just refer to it from here on out as it is, which is stealing the generational wealth that black folks had managed to accumulate away from them, right? So when we look at that, when we grew up in that and continue to hear this messaging of everybody has the same rights, everybody has the same opportunities, we still live in the land of the free, we're all fighting for a better future, right? There's just a few capitalists, crony capitalists, whatever, who are doing some bad shit, but we are going to fight back against them, right? We're still indoctrinated with this shit again and again and again and again, right? So that's because capitalism relies on this. From the get-go, they have relied on propagandizing us and making it to where we think we have a chance even when we don't. The Constitution is one of the best pieces of liberal propaganda of all time, right? Because it sets out these rights that all men are created equal, all this bullshit, right? And never follows through on any of it, right? Even back then, there's fucking slaves, right? There were slaves back then, so of course from the get-go it was bullshit, but people have bought into it and revered it for literal hundreds of years, right? Hey, Lisa, you're good. Don't worry at all. Don't you worry at all. Everybody understood what you was trying to say. Yeah, exactly, Ghost. Now they're using all that to jack up property costs. Exactly, absolutely. Yes, Jason, you cannot separate capitalism from colonialism and imperialism, right? Capitalism is made on the blood of colonized people. Always has been, always will be. So yeah. The reason I'm repeating all this shit that I talk about a lot on this stream is when you have a system that relies on this, right? When you literally have a system that could not survive unless it had the majority of the population believing total lies, right? Then of course it's better at telling lies. If it requires lies to survive, of course it's better at telling lies, right? So what we have to understand is we are going to be fighting this forever, right? The capitalist state cannot allow the socialist state to exist. The capitalist state will fight with every tool it has, militarily and propaganda-wise, to keep the socialist state down, to slip the propaganda into the minds of the population, right? So we were going to have a siege state, and from now until the end of capitalism, all right? This is really important. So anarchists and communists both have to grapple with this, because y'all have to understand we are all going to be under a siege state if we win any kind of revolution, right? The capitalists are going to try to attack us. So as long as we have some internal deficiencies, if we don't address some of the problems that came up with the USSR, as long as we have external attacks, with enough time, that propaganda is going to penetrate. Unless you have something that will keep the propaganda from penetrating from generation to generation, unless you have some kind of anti-indoctrination campaign that is successful from generation to generation, then you are going to have an inevitable influx of capital. Exquisitor Vorbis says Vietnamese people have to fight against the capitalist invaders constantly. I mean, hell yeah. They're actively trying right now. Actively trying to get as much capital as possible and to increase the wage gaps within Vietnam and Cuba, exactly. So how do we combat the complacency that develops? That's a very good question. And what I mean is, I don't have the answer to that right now, but we have to be grappling with it. It literally has to be as important to figure out some of this stuff early as it does to figure out how to keep them from penetrating militarily, right? To keep them from taking us over and taking us down with bombs and guns, right? The propaganda has to be respected, right? So some of you, last time I said we have to respect it, some of y'all didn't like that. What I mean is, you have to understand that it is never going to stop. It is only going to get better. And unless you have something to combat it, it's going to win. All right, so how many people actually died from communism? Well, there's a really funny story here. Churchill was talking to Stalin, and Churchill says to Stalin, "How many people died?" Hey, welcome back, Tyrano. Churchill says to Stalin, "How many people died?" Right? And Stalin in the famine, talking about the famine in Ukraine, right? And what Stalin does is he says he does like this, right? He's like, "Come on, we're like basically like we're not going to talk about that kind of thing, right?" And what Churchill does from then on is he repeats this story again and again, that Stalin held out 10 fingers, right? And so what Churchill said from then on is that, oh, it must have been 10 million people that died, right? So from then on, this lie has been repeated again and again. It has been used as a what's it called? A primary source material on the number of deaths. It's literally been used with things like the Black Book of Communism as a primary source material, right? It gets repeated by historians all the time. I mean, I think he was saying like, let's not talk about shit like that, from one world leader to another. Let's not start comparing how many people have died, right? Yeah, fuck Churchill in the chat, absolutely. So that's just one example of all the many ways that books like the Black Book of Communism and other so-called historians have just made shit up. Like it's not an inflation of the truth. It is a gross fucking lie. All right. So things to think about. How is it that in countries that reverted to capitalism, it mostly happened with either a peaceful transition or it happened with a large amount of death only for the socialists, right? I mean, aren't these like programmed automatons ready to die for the motherland? Aren't they all like wasn't the government made up of wild murderers who would burn the last person just to save communism, right? So there's this disconnect of like showing that showing in media that the communists were super propagandized and brainwashed, but then whenever there was a counter revolution, it just fucking happened, right? And a lot of times it happened with a extreme takeover by the right. So Poland, Zaire, El Salvador, Indonesia, Colombia, there was no civil war, right? There was a civil war to get to to socialism, but there was no civil war getting out of it, right? There was socialist surrender. And what I personally believe, the reason I think this is important to talk about is that I believe that they had lost the war against propaganda early on. I believe that the propaganda had penetrated and had made people feel weak, had made them feel like it was inevitable, had made the people who understood that that they were going to lose their social services seem like either boring old people or like they were just crazy, right? So there's this propaganda campaign that happens before the fascists take over, right? Otherwise, the fascist takeover would be fought back against very strongly. But I believe, like, when we look at the left today, so many people have this feeling of like not being able to do anything, like, oh shit, people just don't care, people just aren't that excited. And when you think about like Russians dying in the tens of millions, like literally dying in the tens of millions for communism, and then you think about the modern American left giving up just because social justice warriors called them a cracker or something, right? Like, it's unbelievable. The difference is just unbelievable, right? And I think that's just because we have been propagandized to be sad, to feel like it's impossible, right? Yeah, Exquisitive Orbis, that is very funny. You can vote yourselves into socialism, but you have to shoot your way out. It's literally the opposite, right? It's so funny how often the right wing just takes things that are and flips them on their heads and presents it as a fact with no basis in reality, right? I mean, zero basis in reality. Yeah, exactly. TMKF, we've been propagandized into being doomers. Exactly. I truly believe that. So, where were all the starved millions thanking the capitalists? Like, if we say that in the USSR there were just people never had enough food and that they were, bread lines and waiting in line for 3 hours for cabbages that had rotted on trains and all that, right? Shouldn't there have been millions of people shouldn't there have been pictures taken of the millions of people who were starving, who were so happy for the capitalist takeover, right? You don't get that. Maybe you might find pictures of people who are happy, but you sure don't find a bunch of pictures of people who are starving, right? And what do they talk about the DPRK today, right? They say everybody's starving in the DPRK, right? Well, I guarantee you, it's just the same shit. They use the same lines again and again and again, right? So how about all the mass graves? I mean, there were capitalists who were very interested in trying to prove how many millions of people had died under communism, right? So why didn't, whenever the country reverted to a capitalist state, how come they didn't find a bunch of mass graves somewhere, right? Like, all of the documentation of all of the gulags and shit like that, I mean, it always spells out mega death, right? Or ultra death. Tons and tons of people dying. But for some reason, they just can't find the bodies. So the answer, of course, is that they're not there, right? People died. People absolutely died in the USSR. Sorry, I forgot y'all, though. Don't rip me for that. So people died in the USSR. People died of starvation in the beginning, right? But there was a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of lies told. Now, why do they need to tell these lies? If there were people who died, like, let's say the numbers that Parenti gives are correct, and there was like under a million, around 750,000, right? Let's say that there were a certain number of people who died. Why would they need to tack on another, 15 million or however? Like, it always grows. The number's always growing. Like, literally decade to decade, the number grows. Why do they need to tack this on? Why can't they just report the truth because it looks bad enough? And the answer is, of course, because they have to make communism look worse than capitalism. They have to be able to come back against the socialists like us who say, look at all these people who are dying under capitalism. Be like, oh well, but look at this. Way more people died under communism. You see my graphs. You see my charts, right? So because so many people died under communism, look, better just accept what we got. It's not perfect, but it's the best we got, right? Isn't that what we always hear? It is. It is what we always hear. So let's keep talking about these gulags, right? So the historical estimate that you get from a lot of these anti-communist historians, estimate that the number of people in gulags would have eventually made gulags the main industry of the USSR. Like it would have been not just the biggest part of the government, it would have been the biggest industry in the country if the numbers are correct, right? So of course it's a lie. So Parenti talks about the way gulags actually worked, and for up to 40% of people were released every year from the gulags, right? So I mean, what? Like, you can't have a death camp, work camp system where 40% of people are getting released every year, right? That's not how death camps work. Similarly, yeah, kind of like the U.S. Prison system. It is amazing how much worse the U.S. prison system is than the prison system of the USSR. So 20% were political prisoners at its height, right? And that's including like around World War II. So the rest of people who were there for typical crimes. So it was just a regular fucking jail, right? They call it gulags and they make it seem like everybody's getting locked up for saying like, oh, you can use a screw as a nail in the USSR, right? But actually, that was the vast majority, even by USSR records, right? Everybody pretty much agrees that it was not a lot of political prisoners, right? All the people in gulags were innocent. Yeah, exactly. The prison death rate, like the accidental prison death rate, was higher in the modern U.S. than it was in the gulags. And I just think that's wild, right? The idea that like over 3 in 1,000 prisoners die accidentally in prisons in the United States, like by guards killing them or self harm, things like that. So it was less in the gulags, which is amazing. And then finally, whenever the communists fell in the USSR, like whenever they were going through the gulags and looking for all these capitalist patriots who had been arrested, right? Why didn't they find them? Why wasn't there a mass release of capitalist patriots, right? There was eventually in the former Nazi-controlled areas, there was a massive release of Nazis, but there was not a massive release of regular old Russian prisoners who had just said something bad against the USSR. And that, I think, is very important. I think that is very important that there would have been, and they would have documented it. They would have made newspaper articles that we could find to this day, but they don't. Another really funny thing here is that picture that I have up right there. The picture of the gulag. If you look up gulags, that picture comes up again and again and again, right? So yeah, that picture looks pretty rough. But why is it that there's just like one picture on Google that keeps coming up? And the answer, of course, is that like they have to reuse pictures of these bad things because it wasn't that widespread. Like maybe they caught like a couple of bad moments, but generally it wasn't like that. They were all unmarked off the record mass graves, but we can't find them because they weren't documented. Yeah, exactly, T-Grab. It's the amazing government machine where they somehow let cabbages rot in trains, but they can hide away billions of dead people that they would never be found for decades and decades. It's just like people who believe in conspiracy theories like aliens existing, right? The idea that like we have massive structures where we have alien technologies and shit, but also the governments can't keep secrets for shit, right? The simultaneous idea. Very funny to me. Oh yeah, are we saying fuck Slayer in the chat? Very fast growing trees. Yeah. Sorry, TMKF. I don't agree. I think they might exist, but I don't think they've been to Earth. That might be an unpopular opinion. Y'all might cancel me for that, but I don't think aliens have been to Earth. Okay, so at the y'all can't cancel me for saying aliens don't exist. If y'all keep talking shit, I might have to bring back Nightbot and put y'all in your place. This is an authoritarian stream. This is totalitarianism. You have to listen to me. Continuing, socialism really does work. Straight up. Before socialism, most of the people who were living in these countries that we talk about as being like so anti-democratic, blah, 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 right? They were subjected to feudal lords. They had never had democracy before communism came in, right? Um, they had their first self-governance ever a lot of times, right? So many of these places had literally been like ruled by emperors and then ruled by foreign colonizers, right? And then capitalist plunderers. And then they got, when they had socialism, it was their first time ever getting democracy. So it is very interesting to me, right? It's very interesting to me that people talk about how anti-democratic some of these places are when actually communism, or like, communist governments brought democracy to these places, right? So continuing. 20% of Shanghai, which was 1.2 million people at the time, was addicted to opium when it was liberated in 1949, right? If you think that that 20% of a population can get addicted to opium by accident, like if you think that just fucking happened and nobody knows why, maybe it was just because they had a lot of cheap opium, or maybe it was just because everybody was sad or something, right? If you don't understand that there is a capitalist reason why all those people were addicted to opium, straight up, you need to rethink that. The imperial governments had purposefully gotten the people. Yeah, the British, exactly. The British imperial government had purposely gotten the people addicted to opium so that they can continue to subjugate them, but also so they can keep selling the shit to them, right? Grow it, refine it, sell it back to them. Yeah, and then after the USSR fell, immediately labor activism was banned, right? People couldn't talk about labor movements or anything political in the workplace anymore, right? And 2,000 protesters got killed in that first little time period when they were trying to set up democracy, right? They had democracy. They were trying to kill democracy. So Parliament got disbanded, right? It's just amazing to me. This shit is just amazing to me that like they have all this immediate anti-democratic stuff. I'm gonna keep going with that. I'm gonna keep talking about that. 42% of people were banned from voting in liberated Estonia. Can you imagine if 42% of people were banned from voting today in the United States? I mean, it's just wild to think about. Just it's wild to compare the ideas. Like, of course, plenty of people are banned from voting. Like, a third of all black men are banned from voting. And then they have voter suppression all over the place. But just think about 42% across the board just banned from voting because they were former socialists. In the 1990 Bulgarian election, the communists won a majority of seats. And guess what? The CIA came in and coordinated all kinds of like labor strikes and shit. Like it's almost impossible to get a labor strike going in the United States. But if there's communism coming in, oh yeah, if communists are winning in the government, they will fuck up that whole country's industry, right? Agreed, T. Griff. Totally agreed. Yeah, and then and this is what's interesting. I said that all about Bulgaria as far as like the them winning the seats, and then immediately the CIA staging all these problems, shutting down industry, making student protest movements, right? And there's clear proof of them doing this. This is not like me making shit up and pulling it off of like some fucking HTML only website. Like this shit is in history books, right? The exact same thing happens in Albania. I think that's wild. The idea that the CIA just literally took a playbook and redid it, and it worked in multiple countries, right? Why change it if it works? So, yeah, Darth Aztec. I think this shit is hilarious. TMKF, what's your home country? Because they probably influenced anti-communist sentiment all over the place, regardless of where you live. Yeah, in Greece. Oh yeah, hell yeah, in Greece they actually owned y'all's prime minister. Like the CIA literally handpicked your prime minister in Greece after World War II, and they controlled Greek politics for actual decades. Papadopoulos was his name, I think. He was a CIA asset. Yeah, kept it a monarchy until the 70s. Yeah, yeah, Darth Aztec. This is going on YouTube. This is absolutely going on YouTube. If you think about this. Okay, so anti-Semitic fascist groups immediately start popping up in Russia, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Ukraine, Belarus, all these different countries immediately, like, why is it always anti-Semitism? You know what I mean? Hey, Queer of Peace, welcome. Like, why are the fascists always anti-Semitic? I mean, like, there's obvious reasons, right? Because that's just, they want to hurt the people who have already been hurt. In Europe, a lot of times, especially back then, it was, like the people that everybody wanted to hurt, like the people who were subjugated the most in many European places were the Jews, right? So of course they always want to pick on the people who have been picked on already. So, and Jews are easy to other. Exactly, Exquisitor Vorbis. So it's just so wild to me that, like, immediately all these, like, proto-Nazis, like crypto-fascist and proto-neo-Nazi groups pop up immediately after the fall of communism, almost like communism and fascism are opposites, right? Why does it pop up after the fall of communism, right? After the fall of socialism? We're not going to say it's communism, but after the fall of socialism, why do these groups pop up? Like, it should be weird to us to think about, right? Unless we know that there is a definite connection, like all socialists should know that there is a definite connection between anti-communism and fascism, anybody else should be kind of weirded out by the fact that these groups that did not exist before the fall of communism suddenly exist and are prevalent in these countries, right? So, anyway, continuing. Ace, I don't know about that. I mean, I'll be honest. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. Just considering the history, the very long history. So, finally, the Nazi war criminals get exonerated. They get let out of prison. The communists get put into prison. The Nazis get let out of prison in all of these countries. So, yes, Queer of Peace, they do. Well, I mean, kind of. It's difficult to say. So the foreign companies since the fall of communism have flooded Russia. All right, so they've taken over very much of Russia's oil and gas resources, which of course is one of the main businesses in Russia right now. Anytime a company gets a country gets taken over by companies, anytime imperialism comes in, then production goes down and natural resource sales go up. Manufacturing goes down, resource sales go up. Right? Why? Because that's fundamental to imperialism. You have to reduce manufacturing in the country. I don't know why I keep saying company. In the country that is being put under imperial rule, and you increase sale of natural resources. What's amazing is you can see this happen again and again and again and again. Everywhere that capitalism goes into a country, everywhere that, of course, first with the British Empire and the other European powers, but then later on with neocolonialism with the U.S., right? Sorry, Exquisitor Vorbis, I'm bad at spelling. Everywhere that it's happened, both with former regular colonialism and now neocolonialism, you will always see a decrease in manufacturing and an increase in natural resource sales. All right? So, in the Czech Republic, which I did spell wrong here, 80% of the industry was privatized and it immediately shrunk by 2/3, right? So that's what I'm talking about. You will see manufacturing numbers shrinking even though they are privatized, right? Apparently, they say to everyone, and people who are not me believe this idea that, like, if you privatize business, they'll do well, right? Sell off all these state assets and then shit'll go better for you. But what we see again and again is the opposite. That as soon as businesses are privatized, they actually lose market share and they do worse. And the foreign companies will buy them out, shut them down. Because their long-term goal, is to buy natural resources and sell finished products back to the company, removing the wealth of the country, right? So farm output went down in Hungary. Bulgarian inflation went up 20% monthly. Like, we have 3% inflation yearly in the U.S. They try to control it around that, right? They had 20% monthly, right? T Griff, you're all right. I just think like um, I think that it is always okay to talk bad about Nazis in the chat. Um, I think we can always say that fascists are anti-communist and communists are anti-fascist. I think that sometimes people like to opine about the place of the Jews, right? Or like why do the Nazis hate the Jews? Blah blah blah, right? And sometimes that territory is just kind of it's inappropriate, right? So you're not doing that, but I'm just saying like part of the reason why I say like let's steer clear of that is because it's just an issue that I think on the left sometimes people say things before doing any investigation, right? I know a lot of people that talk about shit before doing any kind of investigation into how Jews are treated nowadays, how Jews view themselves, right? And so, like, if you're talking about a marginalized group, you have to talk to the marginalized group. You can't just opine on it yourself. You know what I mean? That's all. So, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, career peace. Communists are anti-fascist, fascists are anti-communist. We have hated each other from the get-go because they are fundamentally the only two ideologies. Fundamentally, it all boils down to that. You're either anti-fascist or you're anti-communist. So, the police force went up many times. 80% of businesses are now, or I mean, at the time of writing of this book, 80% of businesses were extorted by gangs in Russia. Like they literally have like mafia extorting businesses, and not just a few. Like all these businesses pay money to the Russian mafia, right? So if the USSR was such a police state, why did they have to multiple times increase police budgets with these quote unquote newly democratic governments, right? And the answer is, of course, because they had way less crime under the USSR. That's the long and the short. It's not that they were scared. You don't scare people into doing less crime. That's been proven. What it was is they had their needs met, so they didn't have to turn to crime. So when people stop getting their needs met, they turn to crime. That's why crime is a social problem, not an individual problem. The biggest lie of capitalism is that everything is an individual problem. Everything that we face is an individual problem. Yeah, really weird how the mafia rose to prominence after the fall of the USSR. Exactly. So, of course, all these things are not weird at all, right? It is very normal. And the reason it's very normal is because they're obviously linked. Straight up, they're very obviously linked. Continuing. So finally, in the end, Marxism calls it. Marxism tells us so many things. Specifically, Marx made a lot of predictions that have absolutely come true. And the thing is, when you look at the world from a standpoint of dialectical materialism, you just understand things better. All right? And why? Because you don't have to have a bunch of propaganda worked in. You don't have to make excuses for the bad shit that happens, right? You can just say, okay, follow the money. Here's who's profiting. Here's who's losing, right? When you look at the world from that point of view, it just becomes a lot easier. Yeah, Marx says business cycles are going to happen, right? There's going to be boom and bust economies, and the reason is because innovation will happen occasionally. People always say capitalism drives innovation. Well, sometimes capitalism can drive innovation, but a lot of times you just don't have innovation in the market sector, right? Like there haven't been a ton of dairy farm innovations in recent years. So what happens is they find ways to extract more labor value from the employees, right? They find ways to take more from nature, and then because they don't find ways of making the machinery better or anything. That's innovation. Doing labor multipliers is innovation. You just have to talk about. You just have to look at how labor is squeezed harder after all the innovation is done, right? Yeah, Exquisitor Vorbis. This shit is funny. So when you have basically an eventual race to the bottom of trying to lower prices and only being able to lower prices by doing bad shit to your employees, by squeezing your employees harder and by ruining the earth more, then eventually you reach a breaking point where the employees can't take it anymore, and so they fight back, or you start having nature collapse, right? So that leads to these busts. Also, the overproduction happens, right? People can't buy shit because they fucking don't make enough money because they've been squeezed by their boss, right? So eventually, there's all these products just laying around, and that's it, right? So that boom and bust cycle was predicted by Marx. Globalization of the boom and bust cycles is also predicted by Marx, right? That the boom and bust cycle is not limited to one country. Eventually, all the world will start having recessions around the same time, and we see that, right? Y'all have seen that in our lifetime several times. Yeah, exactly, T. Griff, exactly. Um, Capital concentration happens more, and with capital concentration, you get more poverty. So Marx called it. Reagan pretended like the opposite was true, that more wealth would mean everybody would get better, right? Rising tide lifts all boats, trickle down economics, etc., right? But what Marx said and what has proven to be true is that um, more poverty comes with more wealth concentration. And it just makes sense, right? It just makes sense. I mean, if the only way one person is going to get mega ultra wealthy is if a lot of other people don't have that money, if labor value is the source of value. If nature and labor value are the source of value, then nature is going to be hurt and people are going to be making less money if there's one person with a whole lot of money, right? So, yep, exactly. Exactly, Jason Voorhees. Twice in your lifetime you've had recessions that are global, not just local to the United States, right? Um, yeah, Reagan indeed in hell. So yeah, this is shit that shouldn't confuse anybody, but so often we just allow propaganda to say like these global recessions are just like accidental in it. Don't it comes only from bankers making mistakes and shit. It's like no, this shit happens for very specific reasons. The bankers are a part of it, but the only reason that it happens is because it's been on the verge of happening for a long time, and then one little mess up with the market is what kicks it over the edge. Yeah, it's by design as well. Absolutely, Exquisitive Orbis. Capitalists make money by buying up all the smaller businesses, and the government puts out austerity measures that allow these companies to make back their profits by taking more from the people, even though the people almost have nothing to give, right? And so they cut down on social services and it's a race to the bottom. So so don't be surprised. We are in the death throes of capitalism, right? It's just happening. Um, Industrialization and leads to internationalization, right? The more a country becomes industrialized, eventually they start moving into finance capital away from manufacturing. And when they move into finance capital, they move into the international playing field where they can use their wealth to control these other countries. They can pay for militaries to go mess up these other countries, but they can also just put them in a debt servitude, right? So eventually, because of this internationalization, the companies will stop having any kind of loyalty to their home countries, right? So companies in the U.S. have no loyalty to the U.S. They stay loyal in some ways because it benefits them, but as soon as things start going bad in this country, they move. Like for example, the manufacturing overseas, right? The one reason why they stay partially connected to the U.S. is that the U.S. military is what helps them the most, right? The opening up of foreign markets by the barrel of a gun. So certainly they don't help out the people of the U.S. Like they feel perfectly comfortable in screwing us over with terrible debt and with moving our manufacturing jobs overseas, right? So finally, the growth of the proletariat is something that Marx also called. Marx basically said that as international industrialization happens, you'll start to see a proletariat movement growing in every country, right? Because the manufacturing will be moved away from from the home country to some of these other countries where they will be able to control them not only by selling finished goods to them, but also simply by controlling capital, by controlling capital alone, right? So, so yeah, uh, basically, end of the day, there is going to be a proletariat everywhere eventually. I mean, maybe this is something that Marx said, and we certainly have seen it where countries like China have a growing proletariat, right? But the sad part is sometimes I think about how the military works and how they purposefully go in and um, they mess around with the different countries, and you know they fucking maybe dismantle some of the advancements in manufacturing that happens. Manufacturing goes down when imperialism goes up, right? So one thing I worry about is that we're going to have recolonization of different countries. A country that allegedly was doing well, a country that has started to break away from its corporate yoke from the United States, right, is going to be invaded, and this like eternal war thing of the United States is going to continue. So in many ways, it's our job as communists to help stop the United States government, because otherwise there will continue to be wars like what we had in Iraq, what we had in Afghanistan, all the wars we had before that were not aberrations. They're going to continue. They're going to continue and continue and continue. So don't be surprised if Iran gets invaded under Biden. In fact, Marcus from Left Flank Vet says he thinks it's going to happen within the year, I believe. So, so yeah, reinvasion and destroying of the proletariat, turning people back into serfs, basically, so that you can reinvade their market. It's just something that happens, right? So, all of that is very sad. None of that's too happy, but it is what it is, right? So the good thing is, at least we can see what's coming. When we talk about dialectical materialism, if you study dialectical materialism, you have a better chance of doing a correct analysis than people with PhDs in economics, right? Because they have to like work their brains around, and they have to accept and never decolonize their minds, right? They have to keep this propaganda going and somehow make it work with their worldview and their science. You don't have to do that, right? You can remove the propaganda from your own mind, and you can learn how to do it better, which means that you can make a more correct analysis. So that's what we see from Marx. We see Marx doing a better analysis, and Marxists, dialectical materialists like Lenin, and all the people who've come after, do a better analysis than leading economists of the day for all time, right? So yeah, that's all I got for today. I appreciate y'all coming to the stream. Way less people tuned in today. I wonder if I did something bad, like had a fucking mistake and made it a subscriber only stream. I don't think I did. But anyway, let's do a raid of somebody else. I really appreciate y'all coming tonight. Hopefully we will. Okay, cool. I'm glad to hear that, TMKF. Hopefully we will talk about something interesting on Tuesday, and then next Friday may have a. Hey Chaz, thank you so much. Next Friday, we may have special guest T and Spittin coming back on to talk about Malcolm X. I can't promise, because we haven't worked it out 100%, but maybe we'll have people. We'll have T and Spittin come on, and I think that would be fun. So yeah, thank y'all so much. I appreciate y'all coming. Let's do a raid. Oh shit. This got cap locks on. That don't work. Raid. Who should we raid? Let's see. Good night, comrade. Who's online right now? Who would appreciate a raid? Let me break out my phone and see who's online. Is Comic Con online right now? Lost Sue's online. We raided Lost Sue recently. So Oh, Sal's online? Yeah, let's fucking raid Sal. Hell yeah, let's raid Sal. Salamander Sweet E. Hell yeah, I love Sal. Okay, we're gonna do it. Let's get ready. Thank y'all for coming. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Um, we might have to come up with a new way of doing things if Twitter was the way that I was getting people to come before. I think I think we'll have to figure out something else. But appreciate y'all, and I hope you have a great night. And I will talk to you soon.